everyone, it's Linda from LindaZ in Arlington Heights, Illinois. I'm going to repeat something that I've done before, only I'm going to do it in a little bit different way, and that's a quilt label. I know that many of you, like me, are probably out there with a lot of quilts that you have not put a label on, and by the time you get to the quilt label, everybody thinks, oh, I've been so much work on this that now what I want to do is just give it to the person or use it myself or whatever. But I really think, and I firmly believe this, that it's so important that you put a quilt label on every one of your quilts, even your table runners. Put a little tiny thing on it, because these items that you have made are really making memories. And without the quilt label, 50 years from now, 60, 100 years, they can last that long. What can happen is somebody has passed that down from generation to generation, and they honestly would like to know the history behind it. Who was this? Was this great-grandma, granny, whatever? And so I'm really encouraging you to do a quick little quilt sample. Those of you that have even a small little 4x4-inch hoop, it's one of the greatest things for just to do a real easy one. I'm going to show you a quilt label on the new Kaffe Facet Bernina 770. I think it just has some really sweet things. I do have other machines that I do my quilt labels on. I have a Brother, I have a Janome, I have a Pfaff. They're great embroidery, quick computerized quilting machines that will do labels for you. So I don't want you to think you only have to have one machine. There are many that you can do. We see people all the time with the small little Brother 1750s. They're great machines. We also have the Brother Flare that has another really great hoop. So, and then you've got people with a great big multi-needle machines that can do quilt labels too. So it really is a gamut of machines. I happen to have this machine here, so I want to show it to you because I think it will give you some really good creative ideas. I have a quilt sample that is finished on the machine. I'm just going to give you a couple of quick ideas on the machine itself on how to take your alphabet. These are alphabets that are built into the embroidery parts of the machine. Now, if you have a sewing machine that doesn't have an embroidery hoop, you see that this machine doesn't have the hoop on it. It's only because I've already done it and I'm not going to put it back on. I just want to show you the mechanics of putting it on. Those of you that don't have a hoop at all could take your little alphabet letters that you have in the machine, and I'm going to give you a little tip on how to do that too. It's going to be a little bit different from what we're doing, but the most important thing is that you finish the label. That's the finishing part of your quilt. My quilt over here, you've seen it in another video, is not quite done yet. I have the little Kaffe designs that I'm putting on, but some of you know that this is for my great-grandchild, the little Charlotte, and it's just so sweet. And there's a lot that has been involved in this, and you really can't see it till you get up close. I got to cut that string, and as you move around with your quilt and you do different things, you'll see places where you want to cut a little thread or you want to be able to see the up close. But you can see the stitching on this was very simple for the actual quilting. You can quilt around each hoop, and this can easily be done on the machine with an embroidery unit. So when I'm through with this, what I will do is take this and I go to the bottom of the quilt, and you can do, I don't know what you like to do, but there's no right or wrong. You can put it on the right or the left. I've seen labels go all the way across the middle of the hoop, and it looks absolutely wonderful. So there are just insurmountable, as creative as you can be, ways to put a quilt label on. I'm showing you a quick and simple and little easy one. There are a couple of things to get started. I do a label with the top layer of whatever the fabric is in the quilt on this particular one. So it's a little pink fabric, and then I have a fussy cut little square with a design. You can see in the quilt itself how there's these little, like this is a little llama with a bunny on it. This one are 3 little animals. I'm not sure what those are. They're cute though. Little bunny over here again. Also, here's another little llama with a little chicken on top. Here, there's a little lamb with a little, I think it's a little chicken, little bunnies here. So I chose the little bunny. This particular one I always take before I do the final label when I'm actually embroidering it with the names. I like to put, before I do a sample. And I think that's really a key thing, and that's why I've shown you this sample. This is not the one I'm going to use, but there's some techniques on here that I want to show you. Those of you, like I said, that have the embroidery hoop that can do the computerized or the quilting in the hoop, you would do this technique. And those of you that are doing it with the machine designs, the alphabet that's built into the machine, would really do the same thing. I take a piece of perfect stick, and this perfect stick was in the hoop. This was in the oval hoop. And what I do is I take and score that perfect stick and then pull it apart. The only reason I'm doing this is because it's very quick and it's very easy. Now, those of you that have, want to actually hoop your fabric, absolutely. Anytime you want to hoop it, it's actually better for it. And then, because this is a woven fabric, I would put some kind of stabilizer on there. The Floriani is Heat and Stay Fusible. OESD has a great one too. It's a weave that's very fusible, and it will just keep it from the label itself. It will keep it from stretching out, and that's what you want to be able to do. The most important part of your quilt label, you don't want it to go cattywampus. You don't want one layer, one angle at one side, and otherwise then you do have to go in and straighten it out. Then depending on the weight of the fabric, this is a very light fabric, very much like Kona. And what I did on this is I'm taking a second layer that I'm going to put on the backing. So I cut myself, and I know, Nick, I'm going to roam around here for a minute, so you might want to see what I'm doing here. This is actually going to be the back of this label. And one of the things that I've seen often from people is I notice sometimes for people that have done this for a while, is that sometimes I'll see their seam and I'll see that this is the salvage edge of the fabric. And I'll see that salvage edge is showing on the actual garment or on the actual label. You absolutely do not want that. First of all, it's heavier. It will it'll distort your fabric a little bit. It just doesn't look nice, so you definitely want to cut that off. And if you haven't used one of these rotary cutters, do you see how I'm going across straight? I'm holding my hand on, this is a, I don't know, it's one of our Quilter Select rulers. I like it because it does have the laser grid. Now, do you see what I did? I just went straight across, and then I turn it over, and then that closes the blade. It's a wonderful rotary cutter because it keeps your hand straight, not like this. That's how you get carpal tunnel. It's like this, and it really does make a difference. Then you're going to measure your size. I just put the label right on here. I cut another square. This is square. I've measured these lines on my ruler. If you look up here, Nick, can you get that real up close? I know I'm trying to show everybody as close as you can get. These rulers have been cut like the Kay England's rulers, which you can't find anymore. I love her rulers, but hers are also laser cut. But these are two with a 1/4 inch in between, which is really, really wonderful. So you can see this way and this way. And then I line up the edge along here to make sure it's all even. So I know these edges are even. So when I cut that piece off here, I know that I've got a straight edge. Then I can turn this around and cut the other side, and it will be a perfect square to go on the back of my label. So that's the fabric part of it. The stabilizer part of it is this perfect stick, but there's something else that I've added. This is your perfect stick. You've seen this in lots of different videos that I've done. This is the fuzzy side, and this is the shiny side. You want the shiny side going into your hoop because you're going to score that afterwards, and you're going to peel that fabric back from the stabilizer, and it's going to be sticky. And the great thing about a label when you're doing this is that when it's sticky, I could take, because what else do I want to put on here? Come on, you all know this. I know. I put a topper. I cut some of this water-soluble topper. and I'm going to, you know, just cut a little piece. And I made this a little bit longer than the actual label. And what's great about this sticky part on the back, I don't have to use my tape. You know, I have that magic tape that I usually put on to hold the topper, but this topper is being held by this sticky part. So do you see how nice that is on there? And again, it's just holding it nice and firm. I don't have to put anything else on it. It's right in the hoop, and it was ready to sew. I did something else that I think is really important for you to see. Say that you don't want a real, this isn't really a real big label. It's probably about, let's see what we've got here. We've got about 4 inches by, not quite, about, you know, maybe 4 by 5 inches at the most. Well, it's not even that. The inside of the sewing is probably no more than 4 by 4. So it's not a big label, but you might want a really tiny label, a much smaller one. And if you want that small label, of course you can do your lettering in the machine, but you also would want to have a thread that's not too thick. And those of you that are doing the design work of the labels, I mean of the alphabet in the sewing machine, you would definitely want to have a smaller alphabet. And in order to do a smaller alphabet, if you remember, I've done, this is a 30 weight thread, and it's a little hard to find now. You can find 28, and sometimes you can find a 30 weight that's an embroidery thread. It's all cotton, and it's quite heavy. That would be too heavy for these letters. Do you know why? What it would do? Even with the stabilizer and the topper, which keeps the letter standing up, it might pucker it, and it's just going to look too thick. So what I have used, and let's see if I can find it for you, it's called a Microtex thread, and it's, again, hard to find, but we've got them. It's a very thin thread, so you'll have to kind of look at it and see what kind of thread you have. If you have a 40 weight thread, embroidery thread, sometimes that will work too, but this is even finer. It's almost like a 60 weight or an 80 weight thread, between a 60 and 80. So it's very, very fine for little tiny letters. And you can see that these letters, I did them in a gray because a lot of the designs in the quilt, the little animals have gray legs, and some of the little bunnies or whatever you call these little cute guys are in gray too. So I thought that would be, pink and gray is always such a fun color. And I did it right over the little label or the fussy cut piece because, again, I didn't want to try and, I could have curved it and brought one down here and one down here, but I just wanted to go ahead and do the whole thing. So again, let me just review the kind of fabric that I'm using. I'm using the same as the top of what I used on the quilt for my label, and then I'm taking just a small piece of Kona, which I also used on the back of this quilt. It's called Ballet Slippers, and that's just so sweet. I thought, oh, that was a great name because it kind of reminds you of a little girl with the little ballet slippers. So that's going to be on the back because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew those together, which I'll show you in a moment. But again, the perfect stick is what is in your hoop. Then the water soluble is on top of the fabric. And that will give you a wonderful, wonderful stitch. You can see, if I take this off a little bit, as this is already done, you can see how nice this is really coming out. You can see that that design is really, really great. I'm going to take, when I'm done with this design, this is something that I do. I'll show you this so you can see how to do it. I'm going to take this water soluble off. See how I'm pulling it off? I'm holding my hand so I get most of it off. Throw that away. You don't want it laying around anywhere because it will get sticky if water gets on it. And then I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to peel off the actual label. And you can see, let me move this out of here so you can see it. Let me get it on the table. And you see how I'm pulling those letters? You can see how that comes off so nicely? See how it's coming out? So I do that all the way around. I get all that sticky part off as much as I possibly can. And once I'm done with all of that and pull it all off, then I take my spray bottle. And boy, if you don't have one of these, I encourage you to get one. The great part about the spray bottle is you want an old towel so it doesn't get all over, because the spray bottle actually just creates a wonderful little mist. Can you see that? See, I'm just spraying that. And then, now I should be doing that after this is all done, but I just want to show you a little piece of it. And then you take your towel and go over the part that you sprayed, pat it down like that, and all that gooky stuff is coming off on your towel, and it's gone off of your label. So you've got a beautiful little label in order to do. So let me finish it so you can kind of see. I like to take my time with this, because when I'm taking this bottom gook stuff off, it really will, if you take your time, every bit of it will come off, which has pretty much happened here. I'm going to throw this away so it doesn't get in our way. And then, now this has not been pressed yet, and you don't want to press. I can feel the glue is gone over here, but the water-soluble topper that I had over here is still on that side. So again, I'm going to give it a little spritz, so the whole thing now. See how I've gone over there? And then I'm going to take this towel, I'm going to take it from this side and go over and really give it a nice pound. Okay, and look at how it's all gone. Now the next thing I'll do is take that to the ironing board. You got to be a little careful. When I was pulling these, some of the little threads came off around the outside edge, but that's not going to bother it at all, because I've got plenty of room here for a label, because I'm going to sew this next piece that I trim off here onto this piece, leave a little opening, turn it to the right side, and then I will hand whip it onto the back of the quilt. But another thing I want to show you before I do that, I could have done this. I could go this way, I could do the press like this, and I could do a little press here. And I'll show you the difference with that. And of course, you'd take this to your ironing board and get those corners nice and straight, and that it would turn out all right too. It's very thin, very small. I like a little bit stronger label because I know it's going to last. This is going to go in the washing machine and in the dryer, and I'm sure that there'll be lots of fun things that'll be done with this blanket. So I really want to, sew the two layers together, which I have here. This is the actual one that I'm going to keep. I chose the little bunnies, and you'll see it when I turn it to the right side. I put my clips on there. I'm going to put this onto the machine. I have, maybe if we can go over to the machine, I can show it to you up close now. I do have a, let's just go in, and I was doing the embroidery, and I'll show you that in a moment, but I want to show you how I finish this off. This has got a dual feed, and that's the great part about this. And you can see I just took that knee lift lever and was able to lower it without having to take my hands off the fabric. See how I can bring that up and down? And I'm holding my fabric with my knee lift lever. That is one of the nicest things you can possibly have when you're doing that. So I'm going to actually start here on the bottom, and what I've done on the top, and I'm only going to do 1/8 of an inch. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm kind of short over here on this side, so I don't want those seams to be real, and they don't have to be 1/4 inch. It can be anything you want to have them be. So it's very smart, because you can see I have a 37D foot on, and this foot shows that I have a 10D, which I was working on before. So I want to change that. And all I have, touch it, and I have my little stylus. My hands go too fast. And you can see I can go over here and get the numbers. And what is great, I'll just go ahead and look at that 37D, and then I'll touch that 37D and say yes. And let's go back, and you can see now it's right here. You see where it says that right there? Can they get that real close? Okay, and I'll get out of that. So now I'm ready to sew. All I want to do is a straight stitch here. Now this little stylus just clamps right back onto the machine, which I just love. And you can see it's starting up. It's making all its motions. I could have done a little back tack there, or I can program that so that it starts like that. This is a brand new machine, so all the defaults are on it right now. But I'm going to go right up to the edge. Okay, and what's so wonderful about this knee lift lever, do you see how I was able to put my hands again right on the fabric where I want it to be, and I didn't have to turn it at all. Now you see how this little, let me get that stylus again, I don't know if they can get this in here. This is where the 1/4 inch or the 1/8 inch is going. I followed this right along the edge of the foot. There's a little opening right here on the foot. I follow it right there, and I get a perfect little 1/8 inch all the way around as I'm sewing on this. If you're used to using a stylus, that's also a nice little feature when you're doing something like this. Although with this built-in dual feed, you really don't have to use anything. But some people I know are used to using a stylus or a stiletto, and that's sometimes a nice thing. Now I'm turning the last corner, and I'm just going to go down to about here, just a couple of stitches, because again, I'm going to back stitch, and then I'm going to use this nice little scissor cutter, and then I'm going to go and get my little pokey, I call it, my little turner. I could do this by hand, where I'm going to turn this inside out, but the little turner is really a nice feature. This is a nice one because you can really get into the corners. This is another one. I have one like this at home, so I just borrowed this from the warehouse. But it's got a nice little point, and it's got a little curve on it. So it's an easy turner. People use it for creasing too on the edge here. But these little points, and it's a soft curve here, which is very nice also. But you can see as I'm going through this, I can just, and if you're afraid you're pulling it too far with the point, it's got a flat head on it too, so you can go back on the other side and then pull it through that way. And once you start to get a little bit of the fabric out, it's easy to start pulling it out yourself. It's not a real big square, so it's going to be easy to turn. If it were a real big one, it's easy too. Sometimes what happens is people will make too big of an opening, and then they find it's hard to sew when they're finished. So do you see how I'm going into the corners now? I'm at the right side of the quilt, and the very, very important thing will be now is to do the pressing correctly. You want to make sure that your points look nice. It doesn't matter if they're square points or if they're rounded points. These happen to be a square. You could really make a rounded one if you'd prefer. And then as I'm doing the pressing, what I will do, let me get this off of here. As I'm doing the pressing on this, I will just fold this like this, and then I'm going to stitch around this once it's pressed. And that'll just be a straight stitch, or because K-Facet has so many of those real pretty little flowers, I might just do a little flower over the edge, right up to the edge, which I think would be real pretty. The next thing, once that's all pressed and the little flower is done, I'm just going to hand whip it onto the machine, onto the back of the quilt. I like to do the hand whipping. It's very secure. It's not going to come off. You're going to find that it's a real easy thing to do. One last little thing that I think you'll enjoy is this is a little bib that we did in one of the events that we had not too long ago. It was done on a brother, and this was actually a pumpkin, of course, with the leaf, and this was all hand designed. Actually, Barbara did this, and she gave it to me afterwards, which was so fun. And when she did this, it was all done in the design center. You could do it on a baby lock, and they're InDesign also. It's just a very quick and easy, simple little thing to do because you can draw it. You get circles, shapes, leaves, click on it, and immediately you've got a design. But one of the reasons I wanted to show it to you is that it's got this water soluble on the top, and I still have a little bit more water in here. So, I love this thing. So I'm going to spritz this again. Maybe I'll bring it over here. You can see it on this table a little bit easier. And you see how I'm spritzing that? Because I want that water soluble to come off of there. I don't want that to stay in the bib. And then I'm going to again take my towel and I'm really going to pound it down on there and make sure you can feel this one. And this one came up pretty good. I still have a lot more to do. This is pretty thick, so you really need to pound it to get that off. I hope these are giving you a little bit of ideas. I think this is the most important part of this video is to get you inspired to go out and get one of your quilts. I don't care which one it is, just go get one and make a little quilt label for yourself. I didn't show you too much on the machine about the labels, but maybe I could show them one quick thing. I know I'm moving back and forth for you, but I'd really like you to be able to see how quick and easy it is to do labels when you are in the machine itself. If you see, there's a lot of little icons here, and whenever you're in doubt on any machine, always go to the home button, because that will tell you where you're going to be. Are you going to be in sewing? Are you going to be into embroidery or quilting in the hoop? And that will come up with a screen that is going to show you those little file folders. And of course, I want to do the alphabets. And then you get to choose whichever alphabet you want. Now, these are alphabets, like I said, that are done in the hoop. So I'm going to grab that. Then you take your little stylus and you would put your letters in. These are caps, so I'm going to do a cap on there, and then I'm going to do a small O. And then I will go to the, you see the colon? And then I'll go ahead and do a space, and let's go back to the capital letter, and then back to your small letter, and just type in whatever letter that you are going to be doing. So I won't continue to go on for you, but you can see that is a real simple way to do it. You'll click your little green arrow, it'll go to your screen, then you can go back and do a second line and a third line, and as you can see on the quilt label that I've done here, I have 4 lines. I would suggest that you put the name that you're giving it to, put the name of the person who has done the work, and then you want to put the date. Always, always, always put the date. They really do want to know when this was made and by whom. So again, quick little ideas, nothing real big today. I just thought it would be a great way to, like I said, get you going. So send me some pictures or comments. I'd love to see what you're doing. And please subscribe to our video. We have so many people that are watching us, and I just love that. I really mean that. You have helped me so much. I've gotten comments and you're giving me ideas, and it's just a very creative way to exchange ideas. So subscribe. Just hit that little red button and you'll get our videos from now on. Thanks again, everyone, and hope to see you next week.